The Portland City Council recently approved the creation of 6 new tax districts throughout the city, where they're hoping to generate new revenue to invest back into those neighborhoods. They're called Tax Increment Financing Districts, or TIF. You can surprise your neighbors by knowing that. It's an idea that's been around for a while in Oregon, and here's how it works. The council approves the boundaries of the district, and when that happens, the properties inside those districts, they have their taxable values sort of frozen in time, which is not to say the property owners never see their bills rise. The bill will go up as the property gets more valuable, but the property owners pay their bill like they always do. But here's what's different. The new amount of tax money paid above that frozen value, it's called an increment. Well, that money goes into a separate fund, the TIF fund. So if you live in a TIF district and you pay, for example, $4,000 a year for your property taxes, the next year it goes up by $100, you'd pay $4,100, and that extra $100 goes into that TIF fund. That $100 is managed by Prosper Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau for new projects. Here's Lisa Obwolf from Prosper Portland to explain what that money pays for.
Things like the Pearl District. So we had a development agreement with a developer who owned a number of acres that before the Pearl District was the Pearl District. And where we invested as a city is we invested in things like the park sequence. So if you think about Tanner Springs and Jameson and Neighborhood Park, we invested in the streetcar. So we were the match for pursuing other funding for the streetcar. We invested in affordable housing. So through the Housing Bureau, we invested in affordable housing to make sure that there was mixed income housing. But those tend to be very 20+ year partnerships where we're investing in the infrastructure that's needed to serve the density of development that's coming into sites that largely have either been industrial or just underbuilt, like the post office has been underbuilt. So that's usually how we come in with infrastructure. What are other examples? Like we helped build the Saturday Market permanent home down in Waterfront Park. So we often are working with kind of nonprofits to support them.
So as she mentioned, the money often goes to large-scale infrastructure projects, but it can also be used on smaller-scale projects for those things within the TIF. Prosper Portland says the money also supports things like Portland's cultural institutions, museums, and things like the Portland Mercado. And the money can be used on a micro level as well. So if you're a small business owner, you can apply for a matching grant, or property owners can apply for loans for property improvements. Portland's new TIF districts are all over town. Here's a look at them. There's one that stretches from Old Town to most of downtown Portland, a couple in the central East Side, and 3 big ones in East Portland. We talked to one of the city's new incoming councilors from District 1, that's East Portland, to see what they think. City Councilor-elect Jamie Dunphy has some reservations about it.
I have some deep skepticism about TIF in general. I think that it has the potential to be a great tool that can bring targeted, geographically based development and opportunity to communities that aren't seeing that naturally through the business cycle. But I also recognize that it requires a lot of leadership and follow through that has been lacking in a lot of the previous TIF districts. I lived in Lentz when the Lentz TIF district came about, and there were promises of walkable, safe communities with community-based assets and small businesses and interesting reasons for people to want to be in the public. And instead, we got a Planet Fitness and an urgent care. It is not the walkable community. It is not small business friendly. It is not really the asset that was promised.
Dunphy says the Eastside needs affordable housing that's big enough for families with kids, so he'd like to see more of that come out of these TIF funds. This is a 30-year project, so it'll likely be a while before we see big changes.